Okay, thanks, Alison. Yeah, and welcome everyone, including some members of the Deviate Carbon Zero Club. So Matt and Ken, I recognize you there on the photos. So yeah, so I'm Gerry Stevens. I'm finance director of Mackie's. I've been there for about 11 years now and seen quite a few changes. I'm responsible for renewables and finance, really. So, but renewables is the fun part. So what I'm going to talk about tonight is just take you through. Can you see my screen? I think hopefully you can. I did see it and now it's disappeared. So
not yet.
All right, let's just try that again then. So
so we did practice beforehand and it was working perfectly.
Yeah. Well, I did see you. Yeah, it's not quite working there. So yeah, there we are. So yeah, hopefully that will be it now.
Yep, you just need to put into presenter mode and we're all ready to go. That's it. Perfect.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk you through a bit of Mackie's renewable journey of where we've been, where we are now, and trying to get to net zero. So this is Mackie's. It's beautiful. We love it. Who wouldn't want to just live and work here? I live about 3.5 miles away. It's a very easy commute. So it's only tractors that I have to worry about. So you can see, as I say, it is beautiful. Mackie's have been farming the land for about 100 years on this site. But the real renewable drive was originally spearheaded by Maitland Mackie, who was a pioneer and a very early adopter of wind turbines and just anything green on the farm. So he first put up the first turbine in 1983, which was a little 50 kilowatt turbine to heat a piggery, of all things. But we really got into commercial turbines, big commercial turbines, in 2005 with the first one, which actually got branded as well before Aberdeenshire Council founded, you shouldn't really brand turbines. So yeah, we got a bit of a sneaky one on that one. So that was an 850 kilowatt Vestas V52, which is the diameter of the blade sweep of a turbine. So that was successful. It helped us in terms of generation, and we quickly followed it with two further sisters in 2007, bringing us to a 2.5 megawatt installed capacity. Again, back in the early 2000s and mid 2000s, things were cheaper. So the cost of all three turbines was about 2.6 million. I think these days you'd probably be looking at least £1 million per turbine, and then the problem would be getting a grid connection. So yeah, so we're got in at the early days or early cost sort of thing. So these turbines are on a ridge. People who've been to Mackie's will see them from around. They're all the same level, which looks quite nice, and they all spin very nicely because it's a nice windy ridge. And these generate about 6.5 megawatt hours of electricity per year. Now, a good thing about the wind and the location is we are getting an efficiency in terms of output of about 33%. So it's one of the better positions of a wind turbine or 3 wind turbines, and the payback period is about 5 years. So so that's gives us a steady income. The figures are there, just over 400,000 in terms of turnover, and then you've got costs in terms of servicing and insurance and everything else. So it does take the profit down. But what it does do for us is, and certainly with recent news of soaring gas prices and electricity prices and energy costs, it actually saves us, because we use most of the output. Well, no, we use about 70% of our electricity in the factory is from the renewable source. So yeah, we use it on site and then export the remainder. So with the success of the 3 turbines, we looked, well, way as far back as 2010, we wanted a 4th turbine. We thought this is a good thing. We want to make more generation. We want to increase our generation, and that I'll talk about it later on. That was our, we thought more generation is good, or more green generation is good. So we decided on a 4th turbine back in 2010. Various planning discussions and rulings from Aberdeenshire Council. We wanted a bigger turbine. Bigger turbines are more efficient. We wanted a 2.3 megawatt turbine, but the planners wanted them all to look the same, about the same height and about the same diameter and blade sweep. So they said we couldn't have a 90 meter, 70 meter or V70 turbine. So we then ended up buying an Enercon E48, so slightly smaller diameter, 48 compared to 52, and it was restricted to 500 kilowatts in terms of output. What we were left with then, because we had negotiated with Scottish and Southern Electricity, we had negotiated we'd bought the grid connection from them. And we had bought a 2.3 grid connection expecting a big turbine. But so when we were only allowed a smaller turbine, we said what we're going to do with the remainder of the grid. So we decided on a solar farm. And this was, at the time, Scotland's largest solar farm of 1.8 megawatts, about 10.5 acres and nearly 7,000 panels. So that's, it was very easy to put up. We didn't have any objections to the solar farm. It doesn't make any noise. It doesn't, produce any flicker or anything like that. Sometimes that's been a complaint against turbines. And the only thing it does take up is 10.5 acres. But I go up to the solar farm quite a bit, and the wildlife, the deer like it for cover. It's a nice place for them to sleep under and things like that. We'd hoped to produce or to put in some beehives in and around the area, but because it's a bit at height, we've got in a bee expert, and he said, well, there's not enough food for bees to survive up there. So we need to think about that, maybe plant some further flowers so that the bees can survive up there and things like that. So, but that increased our generation capacity. So it was a further, as I say, 2.3 megawatts, and that was exported 100% to the grid. Didn't come through the farm, and we weren't able to use it because the grid connection at the farm and the ice cream production side was at capacity. So we had to get a further grid connection purely for the 4th turbine and the solar farm. So again, it produces an income, gives us a nice steady stream of money coming in, which again help us employ more people in the ice cream factory and smooth out the peaks and troughs of normal food manufacturer operating. The other thing we've put in is 200 kilowatt biomass boilers. Again, one heating the office and the other providing a district heating system for 7 houses. So those are farm cottages that provide staff accommodation. So our current project, which again has been about 3 years in the making, is I'll speak about it further, is a new refrigeration project, but it is going to be driven in terms of savings, carbon savings, by 2 900 kilowatt biomass boilers, and that will produce heat, which will then, through the process of absorption chilling, go to cooling. So I'll tell you a bit about that shortly. So this is just what a turbine looks like underneath. So I know people say, oh, well, there's a lot of concrete involved and you take up fields and everything else. It actually looks like a big flying saucer when you look and see what's underneath it or seeing being built. And the bolts that you see, or the crown that you see in the middle, are what the actual tower is bolted onto. So it's just interesting. People see a lot of turbines, but they don't actually know what's underneath them. So that's one going up, a couple of cranes, hoist the columns onto each other, and then put the sail on top and the blades. So the solar farm, it was exciting for us. It was new. We'd not doubled. We'd invested in 150 kilowatts of solar PV panels on our byre roof, which actually power all the cows' milking robots whenever it is sunny enough. So the cows get milked by the sun effectively. But this was our first ground-mounted solar farm, which, as I say, it was Scotland's biggest in 2015. But I think a 3 megawatt one went up near Riney, which then beat us. So cost about £1.6 million, and payback was over 11 years. So unlike the wind, which blows pretty much all the time in Scotland, or certainly where I are up here, the sun doesn't always shine. So it shines at least half of the time, if in terms of daylight, but even then some of those days are very short in winter. So it was, we didn't go into anything fancy like movable solar panels or ones that track the sun, because apparently tracking the energy you put in to track the sun is negligible, or the benefit is negligible when you compare the energy it takes to move the panels. So yeah, they're as I say, nearly 7,000 panels there and 70 inverters that will turn the DC produced by the panels into AC, and then that goes through a substation and exported to the grid. This is, as I say, the most interesting stats. I'm an accountant. I like statistics, so I like graphs and everything else. So this is our energy use, Mackie's energy use, with the blue representing what we have to take from the grid. And you can see before 2005, everything was from the grid. We were using about 200,000 kilowatt hours per year. When we put our first turbine in, we were then, this is sort of between 2005 and 2007, so the first bottom step. What we used in the on site in the ice cream production is shown in yellow, and then any surplus, which was the green, exported to the grid was a bonus. So we thought, okay, we're hoping to grow, we're hoping to make more ice cream. We would like to also be able to make more green energy and export that to the grid. And you'll see the addition of the two further turbines 2 and 3 enabled us to export a lot more energy. We still have some grid usage, and we still, even now with the solar coming in orange figures in 2015-16, we still taking from the grid, and that's just because the wind doesn't blow all the time and the sun doesn't shine all the time. So there are times when our load is greater than our renewables are producing, and it's still needs some grid input. We are hoping to try and reduce this grid by our new project, our refrigeration project, which should see our energy use decrease. You'll see it's slightly increasing all the time, but that's because our output has been increasing over the years as we've sold more ice cream. So again, net zero, it's talked about a lot. You know, what is it? The concept is simple. You know, you balance your greenhouse gas with your greenhouse gas emissions with what you can remove, so that you actually get to zero. But you can't really produce anything without producing emissions. So it's a tricky concept, because you're always going to be having some emissions, and the only way to get to net zero is to offset. And this is where I think it's slightly unregulated at the moment with there are not wild claims, there are claims, oh yes, we're net zero already because we invest in woodlands in Western Australia or things like that. So there are a few, I don't know whether it's marketing or whether I don't know whether how the offsets are regulated. That's what I'm trying to say. So but it's still a case of, you've got to, you have emissions to produce something, or you can offset more. So you could in effect be producing lots and lots of material and just paying to offset somewhere else. So the steps to achieve net zero, things that are under our control, is try and reduce the gas emissions. So reduce your energy consumption, or you can try and remove them by planting trees, store carbon in the soil, and carbon capture and all those other things. So we are doing a mixture of, we're majoring at the moment on trying to reduce our energy use and therefore reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. We will be hand in hand with again, planting trees. We already adopt a minimal till system at Mackie's, i.e. we don't plough over the fields to a deep depth, because that releases the carbon. So we'll use min-till where possible, and try and store carbon in the soil. So but yeah, our main focus at the moment is reducing our own emissions. And this is where our new refrigeration system comes in. So previously we had grown, we started out ice cream making in 1986, and we were a milk producer before that, a dairy, doing doorstep milk deliveries. And with skimmed milk coming along, we had a lot of excess cream and decided to make ice cream. So that's the basic story of how Mackie's got into ice cream. But as we grew in terms of ice cream sales, we had three separate cold stores and cold store chilling equipment, and these all used HCFC gases, which the main one is 404A, or the latest one was R404A, and that is now just recently changing to a new gas, but with each change to make the gas less of a greenhouse warming potential or global warming potential, and more greener, it then becomes, the HCFCs become even more efficient, or more inefficient, sorry. So they were getting more expensive, they were getting more inefficient, and we had legacy systems that weren't really the best things suited for our growth. So we talked about putting in a centralized ammonia plant, which is a lot of the big commercial refrigeration places already have. But again, it's heavily energy intensive. You're running 24/7 with compressors and condensers and so forth, and it is energy intensive. But then we looked at, were there any green ways or lower carbon, and we did get a grant from Scottish government for the low carbon and infrastructure transport program, and they gave us a grant to put in a new refrigeration system which combined a centralized ammonia system and absorption chilling. So both, again, existing technologies, but it was the combination of using absorption chilling from using heat from a biomass boiler to achieve cooling, was a sort of innovation part of that. So I'll try and explain what it does. So if you think of a normal refrigeration or ammonia refrigeration system, you've got ammonia gas or ammonia liquid. It's condensed, it expands, or it's allowed to evaporate, and then it produces a chilling that way. So in very simple terms, and that would be on this side of the diagram. What we have incorporated, or you know, our partners have incorporated, is this absorption chiller, which again uses a heat source. So this is biomass. Biomass boilers, is those two 900 kilowatt biomass boilers are producing water at 105 degrees. That goes through an absorption chiller, which turns that heat into cooling, and that will cool to minus 15 degrees with very little electrical input. You're just basically pumping the water around and getting that cooling for very little electrical input. Because ice cream has to be at minus 30 degrees, we then have to put in some more electrical input in the form of the compressors and the traditional compressor condenser scheme to move from minus 15 to minus 30 degrees for our production of ice cream. But of course, that is a lower energy input than if you were moving from 5 degrees to minus 30 degrees, just because you get in the first 15 degrees or first 15 degrees of cooling from the biomass heat. So the renewable wood chip source. So that's the system that we are putting in. We're already got the cooling system up and working, and down to COVID and some transport delays, we're just about to commission the absorption chiller. So that is going to be an exciting month for commissioning for that. What that means to our output, there's some numbers here. So in terms of our legacy systems, used about 2 million over the year, 2 million kilowatt hours, 2.6 million kilowatt hours. We also, through our new system of creating the heat and the hot water to 105 degrees, we're also eliminating the oil we used for pasteurization. So we used oil to create steam to pasteurize the milk and the ice cream. So we are those were the legacy systems converted into kilograms of CO2. It was about 1.5 million or so. But our new system, because the biomass is doing a lot of the legwork, our grid energy is reduced by a factor of nearly 70 or 80%, and we're also getting rid of our oil, burning oil to make steam for pasteurization. So we are hoping for great things, for energy reduction of about as I say, over 70%, which, if you think, coupled with our generation of where that blue line is sitting on our graph, we're hopefully reducing that to zero and maybe be completely off grid some of the time. I'm not promising that we'll be off grid all of the time, but we're hoping to reduce it, and that is our that's our contribution to try to get to net zero. We will still we still have cows. Cows are probably our biggest emitters of greenhouse gases on the site through the methane they burp and things like that. So but we're trying to, with the renewable energy we're producing, we're offsetting brown energy somewhere on the grid, and we're also reducing our own energy use, and that's the way we are trying to get to net zero.